Hey everyone, welcome to the Honest Hour. Myself here, Christian B. and Burnaby, with three fantastic agents in the greater Vancouver area. We've got Tyson Kliem coming to us from Langley. We've got EJ Bugayong coming to us from Richmond. We've got Norm Hiller coming to us from Vancouver East. And what we do in this program here it's kind of like a brunch discussion here that you get to listen in on, where we talk about what we see going on in the real estate market and also the news, the events in our country and outside our country that could be impacting the local Greater Vancouver real estate market here. And so hopefully you get a lot of value out of it. If you want to reach out to any one of us, you'll just find us by our contact in the show notes below. All right, gentlemen, great to see you. And all right, I'm excited. I think we got four or five, a handful of good topics here. The first one I wanted to throw out there, it's not talked about in the media yet. I did see an article in the last couple of days about it, but I'm wondering if we're gonna start to see more discussion of it. And that is this: could foreign buyers be part of the solution to Vancouver's housing crisis? In other words, do we need more foreign buyers? Now, before viewers start throwing things in their kitchen, let me explain what I'm talking about here. It's not my idea, it's Australia's idea. See, guys, this is what they do in Australia. They allow foreign buyers to buy pre sales, but not existing homes. So you get the pre sale, you get the builds coming in pre sale. So if you had a foreign buyer who could buy 5 units, I mean, they'd obviously that would help in terms of getting the construction completed, and you'd have waves of more homes coming to the market in the future. And presumably, one person can only live in one unit at a time. The other four would need to be rented out. So it's a way to get more rental stock out there. At the same time, Australia says no to buying existing homes. So they take the pressure, they lessen the demand on what's already out there. What are your initial thoughts when you hear something like this? You think Australia's got it right? And could we do that over here in Vancouver? Not all at once.
Yeah, I saw EJ unmute. EJ, what's your thoughts on this? I'm curious to know.
Well, I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit of how it's kind of working in Australia, kind of how that's kind of going over there.
AJ, that's a great question, and no, I do not.
Oh,
I know that I had some notes on it prior. I do not have them in front of me, but I think in 2015, 2016, they had, if I remember correct, something like 30,000 homes, pre-sale homes were bought by foreign buyers. So obviously that would have helped with a lot of construction to spur that. Because we need those future homes to come to market. Because while we've dialed down the immigration here in Canada, we still do have immigration. I can't remember, Tyson, you might know better than I do, but I think we went from something like 400,000 people a year to something like 250,000 a year. Or am I right on that?
Well, I think I haven't seen any recent numbers on it, but from what I understood is when they changed the whole immigration targets, they were projecting Canada to have like a point 0.2 negative percent negative 0.2% population growth for this next year, and then it's going to kind of creep back up again. But I know they drastically readjusted their targets of what they had, so I need to do a little bit more research on it. But Christian, what you're talking about with the pre-sale stuff, from what I understand with how pre-sales work and how developers they need to hit a certain threshold of sales or pre-sales in order to before they put a shovel into their ground, and um and so it requires a lot of investors. Just typically, it's your investors buying because you're not going to see that product come to market for about 3, 4 years or so, 2 to 4 years. And typically, a person who needs to buy something today, they don't want to wait 2 to 4 years for that product to come onto the market before they can move into it. And so it seems like a lot of that market is driven by investment. Um, and right now, well, I know that seems to be a smart move to get foreign money to come into our country because we need the investment to come into our country. Um, but yeah, it's interesting because then will that mean that they'll just hold on to it or will they flip it to then buy something new? That's more questions, but yeah, thought provoking.
Christian, are you aware if they can buy more than one investment property, or are they limited to only one that would be their principal residence, or not sure?
Not sure, Norm.
See, I think it's a fantastic idea, especially, here in Greater Vancouver, we have all these developer cost charges. All these developers are required to build art and, fund certain, parks and money toward the community. I think this would be a fantastic way of putting Canadians first, whether it's citizens or residents, tax-paying people who are living here, putting them first and having that higher price point of a home that's a pre-sale, and a lot of those costs would be covered. Yes, are still investors. They're not going to want to lose money when they sell in 2, 3 years, but it would be a longer graph for them to grow their money. It's not going to be something that they quickly flip. I know a number of years ago here when we didn't have the records, people were flipping properties left, right, and center, making the money. I think some people weren't claiming it and going back home with 200,000, 300,000 lift per unit. If they had 1 unit or 3 units, they signed all the contracts and left. And, I don't think CRA taxed that money, and that money is long gone.
Well, what kind of impact do you think it had at the time? I mean, I know in the 20 teens there was a lot of discussion about, and it's almost like you couldn't pick up a newspaper or log on without something, the headline screaming foreign buyers, this or that. Now, I mean, when you were out there in your practice, like what was the real impact? Like, what did you see? Was it as drastic as maybe the media portrayed it as?
I think typically the media likes to blow things out of proportion, but I don't know the exact stats, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of people who did assign their contracts and didn't claim it. I don't know the exact facts. I don't know if you guys can chime in on that. But I typically steered clients towards resale, especially clients who are going to be, if they're renting now, why continue to pay rent for another 2, 3 years before the building is finished? Buy resale. There's plenty of homes that are 2, 3 years old, way better price point. They can start their mortgage now. And this is when interest rates were 3%. I mean, you're taking off 3 years of your mortgage, as opposed to paying off somebody else's mortgage for 3 years. And especially the young buyers buying that one bedroom, in 3, 4 years, they're going to be outgrowing it anyways. So buy resale. I was telling a lot of people to buy resale. If people have extra money, yeah, sure, buy a pre-sale as an investment.
Hmm. That's a great question. So you were steering your clients towards resale, and to be honest, I was as well, because for a lot of the reasons you just said, Norm. Did you guys like who does a pre-sale really work for? Like once the pre-sale prices get to astronomical levels, and I think the pre-sale peak for prices was 2018. There were some projects even downtown in the West End where they were selling these two bedrooms for 1.4, 1.5 million dollars, like 850 square feet, one parking, 10th floor kind of deal. And they're still not there today. And we're what, 7 years, 8 years on from that. Who does a pre-sale really work for then?
In my opinion, I think people who are, say, in trades going to be getting a wage increase every year for the next 3, 4 years. They're living currently at home with their parents. They have a bit of savings, or they're getting help from parents. They're wanting a new home. Put your name on the list, get a pre-sale, and 3, 4 years later, 2, 3 years later down the road when it's done, they get to move in, and that's when they can afford it. They're in trades. Every year they're going to be getting a raise. I think that's a perfect opportunity. People who have some money and want to, buy an investment property but don't want to deal with a tenant. Um, I think there's a time and a place for pre-sales, but I think a lot of people are buying pre-sales because they heard the amazing stories pre-2018.
Yeah, Tyson, is it do you find what's the pre-sale market outlet in Langley like?
Well, there's a lot more townhouses growing up. We're primarily in the valley. It's people move out here to upsize. It's very family focused, and so townhouses. There's definitely lots of townhouse projects here in Langley area. There are a few low-rise condos that are out there as well. Um, they're slow. and I think pre-sales in general are slow right now. And Yeah, it's interesting because I'm just looking at this and just kind of if you're projecting out a little bit, one is and just things that I'm just knowing from boots on the ground is new house builds across Canada are really slow. Like the new applications for them are really slow, and so we will have some issues I think coming up because there's just not enough activity happening in the pre-sale market, at least out here in the Fraser Valley. Um, yeah, so and right now I think to look at it, the price difference between a pre-sale and a resale is not it's not a big enough spread to make it worth it when you're also paying the GST and other stuff on it. You're basically buying a brand new, it's like buying a brand new car. You got the nice, new condo smell and all that sort of stuff that's coming with it, and knowing not somebody else has lived in it, but you're and in some ways you're almost paying a bit of a premium when you can get something that is maybe a couple years old, move into it and slap a fresh coat of paint on it and it feels like it's new again. But that's at least kind of what we're seeing out here in the valley.
Okay, gee, I am thinking of getting a new car, so you're kind of speaking my language there, Tyson. um,
You gonna get a Tesla?
no, no, the Tesla. Apparently, that's what those things are called now.
Yeah, I just saw a thing where people are slapping different decals now on their Teslas to kind of like hide it. Like somebody put a Mazda decal on the back of their Tesla or an Audi one and just trying to get away from that whole
Yeah, it's been interesting. One of the better ones I heard, one of the little stickers they put on the back is this: I bought this before Elon went crazy. you know, on that note, Norm had EJ. Maybe I'll ask you this: if we were to let foreign buyers come back into the pre-sale market only, for example, what do you think about that? Do we limit them to three, four, five? The reason I ask that is because when we're looking at a lot of these projects getting built, I mean, this is anecdotal. I know in North Surrey there were some developments where I had a little bit more inside intel on, and like 50% of these things were bought by investors, not necessarily foreign investors, but just investors, mostly local. And if it was a 200-story low-rise building, nothing fancy. This is North Surrey, a Wally area, but it improves the area and brings 200 units to market. And uh, in several years ago, they would launch one of these projects, and half the project was bought by investors over the first couple of weeks, and then the public would snap up the other 100 units. So in that instance, the developer was able to meet their financing benchmarks. The project can get built, and now you get 200 new homes on the market. Now, obviously, these investors aren't going to be moving into them, right? They're all renting them, principally renting them out. So, EJ, what would you think about something like that? Would you limit it to like two units per foreign investor? Could it go up to five, or does it even matter?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think the one thing about pre-sales, or if they were to kind of do it where foreign buyers were allowed to buy pre-sales, it's not like how it used to be. Like for a span of a good like 5 to 10 years, you could buy a pre-sale, and when it was ready in 2 to 3 to 5 years, everybody did well. So there were a bunch of people who kept on doing that, people buying four or five of these places and doing really well. And it hasn't, and up until the last couple of years, that's where some people got themselves in some pretty bad situations. So, it's definitely, I think it could be a good opportunity for, more places to be, to build, but I don't see it being as huge of a demand as it used to be, uh, just because, the last couple of years, those people who did buy at the peak of the market into pre-sales and bought quite a bit, and different product types that were, that 1.4 million, $1.2 million pre-sale, they were really hit hard. So, yeah, it'd be interesting. I kind of think that I kind of just let it go and see how it goes from there, and then yeah, just kind of adjust and wait and play a wait and see approach, because I I can definitely see some people wanting to invest, but I don't see foreign buyers just snatching up everything just because of what it's been like for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I can see both sides of the angle of like only limit them to a certain amount of properties, or like I'm kind of sitting more in a camp of let the investor assume the risk. Like if they're going to invest in here and like it's going to force them to do more due diligence to make sure, okay, is this builder actually reputable? Is this a project that I can push forward and have them assume, because that's what essentially what they're doing. They're assuming the risk of this, of saying, hey, I'm going to have this product at the end and I'm going to be able to either sell it or I'm going to be able to rent it out. Because I guess the counter of that is that if you just allow an unlimited number, there's going to be a bunch of more projects that come on. It's going to overflood the market with inventory. But then that's the risk they assume to go, okay, I bought something that's been saturated, and now I either got to like drop the price to sell it or whatnot. But I think there's something about economics and that allow things to kind of flush out, the supply and demand and all that, and people got to calculate those risks. We can't always be protecting things in that, otherwise we start losing a lot more control of what we can and cannot do.
Sure. Look, guys, what do you make of this? And by this, I mean, if you had two, let's say you had pre-sales versus newly completed buildings and or projects where I know, for example, when Burrard Place downtown completed, there was something like 40, 50 listings that hit the market in the first 2 months. Same thing in New West when Bosa completed their project on the Riverside Pier West. Boom, you've got like 56 listings on the market. These are brand new, never lived in. You can negotiate with the seller. The seller will often eat the GST. And it's kind of like taking the automobile out for a test drive, right? And getting a feel for it. Would that be a good time to kind of get in there with a client on something like that? Do you think that's a good idea?
I think if for the right client, if it fits them, yes. I think there can be enough negotiation, um, but it all depends on their situation. And I think the government needs to be having these conversations before acting. I think there's some great ideas here. Another one that I have, again, we can table it for later, but um, anyways, you know what? I'm going to put that later. Let's keep going.
No, what is it? What is it? Now I'm curious.
Yeah, let's do it later. Let's do it later.
Okay.
We're dying to know, Noah.
I know it's Spence. The worst.
All right, let's jump along to interest rates, guys. The Bank of Canada this week cut the interest rate by 0.25%. So a couple of questions on this here. What do you think is the biggest misconceptions buyers and sellers have when they hear the interest rates are dropping?
I think, well, one of the things, right? I mean, you see it in kind of social media when they, all the realtors kind of thing they put out, oh, Bank of Canada dropped their interest rate by 0.25%. And, the interesting part of that is that, that's for the variable rate. And then there's the fixed rate. And, back, it was a couple of years ago, everybody was going the variable rate. And a lot of mortgage brokers said, go the variable rate. I went variable rate. And it was, for the longest time, many, many, many years, variable has always outperformed the fixed rate. But the past couple of years, the variable rate kind of went up a lot higher than expected, and a lot of people are on that. So it kind of put, letting people kind of think about it a bit more. Where do they want to do a variable this time around? So although the variable rate is supposed to come down, it has come down and is supposed to continue to go down. There's just a lot of people out there who are just like, you know what, I just would rather know what my monthly payment is, how much is going to principal, how much is going to interest. So although the variable rate can be attractive, I just want to go with the fixed. And the fixed right now is kind of just hovering where it's hovering. So it's not really being affected right now with when the variable rate kind of goes down.
EJ, could you ever go back to variable rate?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more. I'm a little bit more kind of high risk. I don't know if my wife is, but yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a position where we do okay, so I'm okay to go with the variable rate, but I totally understand where other people are coming from when they go for the fix. So yeah, I'm a variable man. I'm a variable man.
Okay, sticking to his guns.
Yeah, talk to me like in a year from now if I'm backtracking on that.
Hey, look, I went through the same thing you did, and you're a better man than I am because I don't know that I could go back. I need that memory to get flushed out of my system, out of my mind. Tyson, what do you think? Would you advise someone to buy now, or would you tell them to wait for more interest rate cuts?
Well, it all depends on your situation, really. Like if some people got to move, and if they got to move, then make the move. But if somebody's looking to buy an investment or something like that, depends on where you're buying. We were just meeting. I was at a meetup, an investor meetup, and there's some guys looking to buy some condos in Kelowna, and I was just sitting there with a mortgage broker buddy of mine who kind of lives out in that area, and we were both saying, hey, you probably want to wait because there's some large projects that are coming onto the market here live soon, like they're being built and they're going to be moving in. There's going to be a flood of new condos on the market. You want to wait for that, but when interest rates go down, we celebrate because we're like, yes, our payments getting cheaper, especially if you're variable, but there's a reason why the interest rates are going down is because there's stress in the economy. And that's the thing I think people need to realize that when they hear, rates are going down, you don't want to celebrate too strongly because that means that the Bank of Canada is realizing, okay, there's economic stress. And so we're kind of teetering on this place of are we going to start losing jobs? Because once people start losing jobs and they can't find replacements, then everything's just going to continue to snowball and get worse and worse. And so that's why the government's reducing rates to try and stimulate more investment in all that. So the 0.25% cuts, they're not going to make a big difference in the short term. They will over time. And I know there's been projections that if this whole tariff war and other stuff goes on, that they projected that rates can drop as low as 1.5%, as what BMO projected for the Bank of Canada rate to drop even that far. We're still a bit of ways away from that, but yeah, people always say rates drop, prices go up, and historically you do see that. But there has to be a lot of other factors at play with the economy, with people being able to get jobs and other stuff like that.
Sure, and that's a great point. I mean, as rates generally come down, it makes things more affordable, and historically, that means prices go up.
That's right.
Could you see that happening in the next 12 to 18 months?
It's a good question. It's if things weren't as topsy-turvy as they were down south, then I would say yes. Everything was projecting that the market was going to have a modest increase this year, about 3 to 4.5% is kind of what I've been reading. But right now it's very dependent. I've heard going back on the foreign buyer thing, just hearing rumors that the government's now possibly looking at lifting the foreign buyer ban, which, if you think about it, with all the news that's happening down south, would that incentivize some people to move their money or to buy some properties up north in Canada or whatnot? I don't know, but yeah, that's
That's interesting. That's interesting. What did you read or what did you hear?
well, just that, just looking on through some other industry guys that I follow on social media, just talking about how Canada's possibly looking at maybe lifting that foreign buyer ban. That was really done as a result, I think, with COVID and also with public pressure and the stress that we had with a lack of supply in the market. Well, in 1 year, or maybe it's even just a little bit less than 1 year, we have now flipped to the complete opposite, where we have an oversupply on the market. I think we're at a 20-year high of inventory on the market, which is great for buyers. Um, because now there's options that they can buy, which they haven't had for I don't know how many years, like 5, 10 years. They haven't had that option to really be able to pick and choose from different inventory. But but I've also known, and I'm just kind of looking through all the different headlines, like David Eby, I don't know, our premier of British Columbia is talking about incentivizing American doctors to come up to Canada and saying that, hey, we're going to pay you, we're going to fast track your medical license and stuff. And so they're talking about anytime there's stress or uncertainty in the country. You saw it with Russia. Now I'm wondering if you're going to see it with the U.S., where there's going to be a bit of a brain drain, where high income individuals who possibly consider maybe moving out to a place that's a little bit more stable for them. Unsure. So that's why I wonder if they're starting to look at some of these things, going, hey, is there an opportunity where we can bring some foreign investment back into our country that we've lost the last couple of years, and see our economy grow? Because really, our economy is oil and real estate. Seems to be a lot of the pieces of it, and I think that's something that they're realizing they need to continue to turn that tap on a little bit more.
Sure. Gentlemen, let's turn the page and move on to tariffs and the impact that they could have on home prices here in the greater Vancouver area. Maybe let me ask you a bit of a lighthearted question here, but if tariffs added $50,000 to the price of a home, what would be something, a ridiculous request for a luxury upgrade that a buyer could ask a developer to do on a home?
Hmm.
Put in the all wolf fridge and appliances because those are probably the premium top of the line the appliance set in terms of I mean some of those fridges cost $20,000 but I mean obviously being facetious with that but are you seeing do you I mean I think it's still too early but are they pricing in future tariffs into present day pre-sales?
I
I
haven't
don't
seen
think.
it yet, and I think the tariffs would affect more things than people expect. I just was at an AGM the other day on a building in Burnaby, and they were talking about, well, down the road when they do their windows, which is coming up sooner rather than later, the tariffs would be affecting the prices of that. So I raised my hand and I said, we have a lot of window companies in Surrey and Langley. How does this actually affect them? Because don't we make an awful lot of windows? And it's not the window frames necessarily, because like we make a lot of vinyl window frames. There's tons of companies that we have. It's the actual glazing itself. So I believe we import the glass itself, cut it to size, put them together, and then assemble them in the window frames. So all the glazing itself that goes up, you name it. Like there's tons of stuff that we're importing that's going to be subject to tariffs. So I think it's actually going to affect us a lot more than we think it will. Um, so I haven't seen much of a price adjustment from developers yet. At the same time, I also concentrate more on resale because I have more clients for resale. So that's why I've kind of concentrated more on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point that kind of Norm kind of mentioned is that we really don't know how this is all kind of going to play out. And it's interesting with the pre-sales because they are kind of slower right now. When you're slow, you don't really want to increase your price because you want to attract more buyers. So if they have to increase their price, it'd be very interesting to see how that kind of plays out because yeah, buyers are price sensitive and they should be, right? With these interest rates and how things are kind of going on. So, the long-term effects of tariffs could be very interesting to see, yeah, how all this kind of plays out.
And you
Mhm.
know what? I think people who might feel it first are people doing home renovations
Yeah.
because, right, that's the immediate impact right there. And if somebody, I mean, a lot of the stuff we import comes from the United States. I mean, Norm mentioned windows, but I think it's also things like tiles and flooring and not just the physical, the wood that goes into the structure of a home, but there's lots of materials that come from the US. And if you just add, I mean, even just appliances, right? Appliances. So you go online and look at what's a fridge cost at Costco, and it's about 1,700 bucks for the cheapest fridge. Now you put a 25% tariff on that, you're adding about $400 to $500 just on the fridge, right? And the whole appliance set's probably going to cost you about close to $10,000. So now you're adding $2,500 just for the same appliances. So when people say that tariffs are inflationary, they absolutely are because they're driving the price up for everything. Um, they make no sense, in my opinion. Make no sense for anybody, for us here or for them down there in the U.S.
Mhm. Yeah, I was gonna say like, and I think too, like your house that's already built, like the house, the walls I'm living and stuff like that, those are already tariff proof in a way because those were already built, and so that's why resale is not going to really. I think you're not going to see a massive impact on that per se because it's already built. But you're right, with the renovation costs, that's going to jack things up, and things are already expensive with that. I think the biggest thing where it's going to affect real estate is when it comes down to jobs and job losses and people not being able to work or the different sectors being affected because of industries being having to shift and change. But there's still options out there. It's funny or it's great to see infographics out there of going, hey, if you bought this, try looking at these other brands that aren't, they're from Europe or they're from Asia or somewhere
Mhm.
like that where they're going to be there's no tariffs on them. And so I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a continued diversification away from U.S. dependency,
Mhm.
which is not necessarily a bad thing. it's just so convenient when our neighbor's just down south to us, for transport and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's not bad when we diversify our economy, but it's going to be short-term pain. But I think in the long term, it's going to benefit us as we continue to diversify out.
I was actually just thinking about that. Is luxury and regular homes going to have a difference in inflation? Because you look at some more luxurious appliances or homes, they have, European appliances, whether it's German, Italian, sinks, for example, too, like everything. That there's so many products that are not just from the States, but I find more builder spec stuff is, from the States, from China, that type of those type of products. Whereas more luxurious builds, you're going to have a whole different set of appliances and you name it.
But
So
I think you're still going to probably see retail still increase their prices if they see everything else going up. They're going to want to, get their cut from that. So they're probably still going to raise prices, just like we saw, across Canada with groceries and other stuff that happened in the last few years. But yeah, it will be interesting because it's going to be advantageous for them to say, hey, we can get market share here
yep.
because we're tariff free.
Everybody's going to blame it on tariffs to get their piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys now, how much effort are you putting into buying Canadian only products? When you're in the supermarket, are you checking to see where this thing is made?
Yeah. I would try to, but I mean, at the same time, I'd rather buy stuff that lasts than buy it two, three times over again. Right? We just did a renovation, and I don't want to buy appliances where we're going to rebuy them in 4 or 5 years, right? So that's kind of more top of mind for me. And then after that, it's, is it made in Canada or not?
Sure, sure. But how about like when you're just doing your sort of your weekly shopping, your grocery shopping and so on? Are you making a conscious effort to stay local or stay away from American products?
Yeah, I'll
We
try.
are. Yeah, we are. We used to do a monthly shop down at Costco in Bellingham just because they had some different products and other stuff. But now we're not even going down there. It hasn't even crossed our mind to go down there. Um, and also just understanding things are changing. Now we're hearing about friends and other ones who are being dinged at the border and grilled really hard because we had a free trade agreement, and so you'd never really question as long as you stay within your allotment. But now we hear just the border guards are now starting to. Um, Question a lot more of your purchases and pull you in for tariffs if you need to. So we're trying to support Canadian as much as we can. Um, as long as it's made in Canada or something that is Canadian, we're supporting it. None of that watery American beer.
Right. Okay, let's move along. Gentlemen, townhouses, the average price, according to the Greater Real Estate Vancouver stats, the average price of a townhouse in Greater Vancouver is 1.08 million. 1.08. What are your thoughts on townhomes? Are these starter homes? Are they a compromise product for buyers who are locked out of the detached market?
Yeah, I think, you know, um, even just for myself, I was in a townhouse not too long ago and moved up to a house within the past few months over here. And it was just such a big jump from the townhouse to the detached that I can totally see how the new dream for, when you're starting off as a first-time home buyer isn't to buy a house, right? Like it's just so high for detached that maybe the goal is just a townhouse. And, a lot of the townhouses now, or a good portion of them, there's some good size to it, and you can make do with, two or three kids or whatnot. So I feel like it's always going to be in demand. And it's before it was like you start off, you pyramid up from the condo to the townhouse, do that every few years, and work your way up to the house. But when I look talk to a lot of my clients, it's not really the goal for them. They're just looking for a place that kind of works for them and their family, and the townhouse seems to be the right fit.
Tyson, do you see the same in Langley?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just kind of pulling up our stats here for the Fraser Valley, and year over year, there has been a price appreciation when it comes to townhouses, and like about 2% when it comes to townhouses. Um, Condos have been hit a little bit more, but it's interesting as I'm kind of doing a little bit more of a dive into this. The more west you are in the Fraser Valley, the more price drop you're having. But then out in Abbotsford, Chilliwack, those prices are actually going up. So it's funny because in Delta and Surrey, prices are dropped drastically, which I have another theory as to why that could also possibly be. But then Langley, you're seeing it's kind of hovered around even, and then Abbotsford and Chilliwack, as you get further out where it's more affordable, you're seeing prices increasing somewhat out there. So just interesting because it's showing kind of the narrative of people moving out to greener pastures in the smelly Abbotsford, Chilliwack Valley.
Sure. Now, why you mentioned Delta and Surrey and the prices for townhomes, they're going down. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It could be one. I know Surrey's built a lot of product in the last few years. I also wonder too. We've had a big change in our in immigration, and I know Surrey has a large immigrant population too, compared to Langley and Abbotsford and Chilliwack. And with the huge cut of that, I know that's really affected rental markets. We're seeing a lot more inventory for rentals, prices going down in rents and other stuff. And so I just wonder, is there a correlation between Immigration Canada just cutting off all kind of immigration in a way and trying to get people out of the country, not renewing visas, other stuff, and are we seeing that change happen
Mhm.
in areas that are more
Guys,
immigrant centric? Yeah.
right, and that's impacting less immigration, and that's impacting the townhomes in those pockets of the city. Um, are there good? Are there? I mean, EJ, there's a lot of townhomes in Richmond. Would you say is there a couple of pockets there that you really think buyers should be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, for Richmond, the pricing is actually fairly consistent throughout. Like Richmond's quite big, and there's lots of different smaller, areas within Richmond and pockets there, but they're all fairly consistent. You can't really find a better deal in East Richmond versus in Steveston and so on. But you can definitely kind of tell in this kind of market that's a bit more slower and a bit more uncertain that the more desirable areas are definitely selling more quickly versus some of the other ones that are sitting on the market. And back a couple of years ago when the market was hot, any kind of townhouse, basically anything would just sell, even if it was on a busy street or it had a weird kind of layout. And now buyers who are actually wanting to make a move in this market are really starting to look into, okay, yeah, where is it located in regard to the main road and what is the layout kind of thing. They have more choice. So yeah, I think just in general, yeah, townhouses are pretty high demand just based on their price point and where these young families who are in a condo need to move next.
EJ, what's the average price for a decent three-bed townhouse in Richmond right now?
Um, there's such a range, right? So there's that entry level townhouse that's that 3 bed, 1.5 bath. There's no garage or anything like that, and those, depending on the area, could be between 875 to $950,000. And then once you start getting into those 20-year-old kind of townhouses with a garage, those start going into the million 200,000 kind of range. So there is a big range kind of in that regard. But those entry level homes for townhouses under $1 million for 3 bedrooms, they do fairly well over in Richmond, especially in some of the really good areas there, especially like in Steveston.
Sure, sure. Norm, what do you think of the townhomes over here in East Van and Burnaby?
I actually just had a conversation with some clients about it the other day. I really push clients not to buy a ground level townhouse with it stacked like a two-level townhouse above, especially if they're a young person, pre-kids, don't have kids yet. Guaranteed the people above you, 99% chance it's gonna be a young family with kids. It's just an inferior product to be living below somebody, one level townhouse, at least buy the two-level one above it. But the jump to a one townhouse where nobody's above you or below you, and you have your own garage or parkade underneath the building, that's typically a huge jump in price point. Whether it's a 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom versus that 2 bed, 2 bath, two-level townhouse with somebody below you. So it's a very big price jump. But I really push for not buying the bottom level unit. So I think they're fantastic homes. I agree with you guys that most young buyers have kissed goodbye the detached home ownership dream. And I for very good reasons. I mean, you add up the cost of windows, roof, repairs, you're probably over $1,000 a month for maintenance and upgrades, especially if the home is coming up to needing a renovation, stuff like that. You add that into the mix, and it's a whole different ball game. So I think townhomes are great. Buy the right one. Um, and I do want to say this too. When the market picks up one day and it's a crazy multiple offer market, anything will sell. But right now, it's going to be difficult to sell the homes on a busier street. It's going to be difficult to sell those ground level homes. Whereas in a hot market, anything sells. And a lot of people will compromise on that, and you don't do so badly on the sale price when you do sell an inferior product in a crazy market.
Sure, sure. And you know what? I think that in when it comes to townhomes, I mean, I the one area I don't really like the ones that we see here in Burnaby and East Van. Especially the newer ones. They're narrow, they're boxy. You mentioned the stacked variety where you've got neighbors above you or below you. It really feels like a condo, doesn't it? And I try to steer clients away from that, but it depends on their budget and of course their desire to be in a certain school district or neighborhood. But if possible, the two options I always suggest is our Coquitlam, where you get a lot of these master plan communities like Burke Mountain, beautiful community, it's very safe, removed. And if you're working from home, that which wasn't an option to people 5 years ago, it is now. It's commonplace in our society. But if you're working from home, boy, you can get a nice townhouse there for maybe 1.1, 1.15 with a garage. Not for sure. There's always options out there. The other option I mentioned, as long as you can get over the hassle and the pain in the ass of going over the bridge, is Queensboro,
Mhm.
because Queensboro is very affordable, $900,000, 950. You can get a very very good townhouse. Again, maybe for somebody who's working from home. Okay, last topic, or one of the last topics here. Rents, declining rents. Remember early in 2024, the government banned most Airbnbs with one stroke of the pen. They took 17,000 rental Airbnbs off the market. And the purpose of that was to bring more homes into the rental pool and bring down rents. Well, it does appear to be working. Rents, from my numbers, were off by about 8% where they were about a year ago. I guess my question here is this relief for renters short term? Is this a short term dip, or are we going to eventually it's gonna keep going back up?
Yeah, I mean, there was so you said there's relief of 8% from it was last year for rent. Is that right, Christian?
From what I was seeing from online numbers, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's still high, basically, right? When you look at those rates, those rental rates that were, pre-COVID or even during kind of COVID, people got some great rental rates and they're like, oh, wow, this is awesome. Like, work from home, I get to stay in this place and rent's pretty decent. I can afford this. But 8% discount off something that's already high is still high. Like it's a struggle, right? There are a lot of people are struggling, and if you're renting, it's that 8%. It's helps, but I wouldn't say people are like, okay, great, now I'm just gonna continue to rent forever because my rental rate is great. The new rental rates are great. They're still pretty elevated, from my understanding at least.
Sure. I mean, if you take let's say if something was $3,000 a year ago and you knock off 8%, I mean, you bring it down to 2,750. You're right. It helps, but it's still high. Tyson, what are the rental rates out like in the Fraser Valley?
Oh, it varies. Langley, where I personally live, you can get a one bedroom suite anywhere between $1,500 to $1,800 for a one bedroom basement suite. So that's pretty high. I think if you go for like a townhouse, like three bedroom townhouse, you're probably sitting around $3,000 or so a month for rent on something like that. But as far as rents, it all depends on what really happens with external factors. As far as are we going to see another uptick in immigration? Is the government going to start opening up Airbnbs again? We're just out in Kelowna, have a listing out there, and the amount of inventory out in the Okanagan is crazy, and they're just saying the market's completely flat, like it's dead out there. And that was a area that really benefited from the Airbnbs. And so, like we have clients, they couldn't even rent out their place that they had bought right before the Airbnb ruling came in. They bought a house and reason for Airbnb, and then all of a sudden that stopped it. And then they tried to rent out long term to somebody, couldn't find their tenant, and so they're now selling their place. And that's a lot of stories out in the Okanagan. So very interesting. But I think rents right now are going to continue to probably drop unless we see again more inflow of people. But right now we're in such a supply excess. I think you're going to end with new condos still coming on the market, but not new buyers as much. I think we're going to see more cooling.
Interesting. So you're just saying there, Tyson, that this couple that you mentioned, they had bought with the intention of living in the home and then possibly renting out through Airbnb or short term the basement or the other unit.
It was an investment property that they had bought. So they lived there. They bought like a house just down the road. And they're like, oh, this is great. That's close to wineries. It's close to the lake. It's close to all these sort of things. So we're gonna Airbnb this thing out, and it's gonna be great, service for our community and for tourism. And then all of a sudden that the laws came out, and they couldn't. And then they tried to rent it out to a long-term tenant. Couldn't find a long-term tenant, and they sat for over a year.
Hmm.
Wow.
Norm, are you finding it that rough on landlords here where they can't find tenants in Vancouver, in the greater area of Vancouver?
Well, here's an example. I mean, I'll give a case example without sharing names. I mean, in 2021, in this building in Burnaby, rents were about $2,000 a month. That's a two bed, one bath, shared laundry, nice building. Um, and those rents went from about 2,000 to upwards of about $3,000 a month. That would have probably been about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Um, and now it's probably sitting at around 2750, something like that. So it really follows the payments. So the interest rates, went up, and it's if when investors buy, it really follows those payments, not necessarily the sales prices of those homes. So we see a lot of tenants that, are grandfathered in at $2,000 a month. Rents are now at 2,100 a month, all those years later. And remember, one of those years you couldn't raise rents during COVID. So, rents are at about $2,100 a month. And, people like this, young tenants, they're doing everything possible to save, so that eventually they can buy a home. So we're getting a lot of people that just aren't wanting to move, because why would they? Their rents are going to get jacked up. Other people who are new to the market, who are going to be paying, 2750 a month. And they see other people paying 3,000, other people paying 2,000. It's a crazy mishmash of what's going on. That's why I think a lot of confusion is going on as well. So unfortunately, with no investors buying, I don't see a lot more product coming to market. It's all, a lot of end users have been buying when stuff does come to market. I don't see a lot of investment. I myself have not had a single investment client since the capital gains inclusion rate was announced. I haven't had a single investor buying a property for a rental. And I think that's going to really impact rental rates. Having said that, I mean, there's so many factors. It's not just that. It's I think the biggest factor really is interest rate, because it affects the payment.
Yeah, and I think the key here is you're saying that if an investor has to subsidize the rent by four, six, $800 a month, that's not an investment. That makes no sense. Why would you lose money?
In
And
this particular, so sorry, finish up.
no, go ahead.
In this particular instance, I mean, they started off at negative 5,000 a year cash flow. Worst year was negative 19,000. Mind you, that was with a few $1,000s of an assessment. And, now with interest rates down a little bit, I mean, they're probably looking at, and that's the thing, is like, do they sell? Do they not? What's the value of the building going to do? What are assessments going to look like in the next few years? it's not just bleeding a little bit, it's hemorrhaging every month. It's insane. And I think a lot of tenants need to see that side of it as well. And if you are in that fortunate position, save hard, especially if you're dual income, no kids. Save hard, set yourself up so that you can buy a place. And if you're not going to buy a place, that's fine. Then save up, put your money, invest it, and you utilize that time.
Yeah, there's opportunities out there, and like you're saying, Norm, there is some stress in the market with people like investors like that because they're thinking if you're floating, if you're carrying a property in $19,000 a year, you also got to think about the taxes. Like that's just not your $19,000 of earning income because you got to think about your earning above that to pay for the taxes to come off, so you can pay your net $19,000 out of that, and so that's probably a $30,000 of income that they got to make or so for that. But I know we just had clients buy a place in South Langley, and they got a home for about 120 or 150,000 under the initial list price of what they listed it for, and it's a fully renovated, beautiful house with a legal two-bedroom suite in it on a quarter acre lot. And just was amazed. And they're moving from Vancouver out to here, and they're blown away at what they could get for that price. So.
Mhm.
Hmm. Okay, let's move along, gentlemen. Norm, you had a topic or two you wanted to bring up, and the mic is yours.
Mhm. So I think the biggest topic that I have today is in years past, we've had some crazy markets, and it's been frustrating for buyers, some realtors, but it's devastating for some buyers. They see that there's an open house Saturday, Sunday, they decide to go to the open house. Well, they get there, it's already sold, no open house. So the real estate board has, on their own accord, decided to do a direction regarding offer presentation form, which spells it out. We're going to hold off with offers for 1 week. So list date is Monday. Next Monday or Tuesday, whatever it may be, will be the offer presentation date at 4 p.m., 6 p.m., whatever it may be, which was fantastic. It spelled it out. Buyers knew, realtors knew, they knew what to expect. Then we adopted what people are doing back east, and in Toronto, a lot of it is these bully offers. So people would come and say, you know what, I know you're looking at offers on Monday. Here's a offer 20,000 over list price, 80,000 over list price, whatever it may be, and cash offer. Those were being accepted because, hey, it's a cash offer, it's done deal. There was no rescission period at that time either, so the buyer could not walk away 3 days later. So the real estate board made this direction of regarding offer presentation form because of all the yo-yoing back and forth, people revoking that. The real estate board decided, let's make it irrevocable. So once you decide on a date, the seller is bound to that date. You can't change your mind. It's out of fairness. And I've had some listings where you do a direction of offers, not to be arrogant or overly confident. It's just we want a week to market the home. We want to have a fair chance for buyers to see it. We want to also have a fair chance to be able to market it as well. Whatever happens, happens. We're happy to sell it. Obviously, we're not going to take 200,000 under list price, but we're not artificially pricing it low to manipulate the situation. We just want to have a week to market it. So it's been working really, really well, this irrevocable presentation of offers. I guess the real estate board and BCFSA has had some complaints, and it sounds like it's not even complaints from the general public. It's been some complaints from realtors. So a week and a half ago, we had an announcement that BCFSA is requiring us to remove the irrevocable portion of it because of some complaints. And this comes into effect March 17th. And there's a lot of questions that we have, not a lot have been answered. It sounds like doesn't matter what form you use, it's just the irrevocable portion of it is going to be null and void. So we're supposed to still do the direction of offers, but we can revoke it. We can do whatever we want. So I think we're going back to the old days where it just made a lot of confusion. It puts buyers at a severe disadvantage. The reason why is because there could be some cases here and there where a seller is put at a disadvantage. Say a great offer comes up, over market value, and maybe that bully offer is that buyer is saying, we may not be here on Monday, so take this offer and leave it. accept this offer or we're going to walk away. So I think there has been the odd case here and there where sellers may be put at a disadvantage or perceived disadvantage. Like maybe those buyers are actually just bluffing. So again, with so many changes recently, we're yo-yoing back and forth, and it's just, I think a lot of us are exhausted, and we just want the government or people regulating us to brainstorm, like we're doing right now, brainstorm, think of a plan, like in construction, measure twice, cut once. And that's just not happening. And I think a lot of buyers are going to be frustrated. A lot of realtors are going to be frustrated. I don't think it's a wise move. What do you guys think? And I'm curious what the general public thinks as well.
Yeah, I think it's just so interesting because I understand a seller can be, at a disadvantage to be like, oh no, like these guys really want to put an offer in, but we're viewing offers next week. But you made the decision to review offers at a certain day. Nobody said you had to review offers a certain day. You could have just said, nope, this is our asking price. Anybody come anytime. I feel like if you make the decision to say, hey, you know what, we're viewing offers next week, then stick to it. Then that's the risk of reviewing offers on a certain day is that's when you say you're going to review the offer. So it is interesting. I was very surprised to kind of see that they're going back to this, but unfortunately, we have a lot of changes within our market, and we kind of have to do what we have to do. But yeah, it's I don't think it was like Norm kind of mentioned. I don't think there's a lot of the public who was complaining about, oh, I wish I could put an offer in earlier or whatnot. So yeah, it's kind of stupid, but it is what it is, unfortunately.
I
I
agree
had
with
a,
you. I
I
agree
had
with
a
you
list.
100%, EJ. I really like that they made it crystal clear that if you're going to put offers, you're going to look at offers a 1 week from now, it's 1 week from now. You can't change your mind on that once you've signed that document. So I actually, this one's news to me, and thank you for bringing it up, Norm. Um, so this is another example of, I don't know why they just keep changing the rules. They keep moving the goalposts here, and this one doesn't help. I found it frustrating when I was working with buyers, and you'd be looking at townhouses in South Surrey, and they've got the open house Saturday 2 to 4, Sunday 2 to 4, and we roll up Saturday, and the agent said, "Sorry, sold last night, Friday night, sold,
Yeah.
75,000 over asking." And you know what? Maybe my client would have done that, or even done 100,000 over asking. But you didn't even give us the opportunity to come inside because he was working the night shift or something. So I really liked that they had done this. It makes no sense to go back. I mean, this is and just another example. Sorry, guys, if I sound a little bit frustrated,
Oh,
but
good.
they're just making too many decisions here that don't help us. This is gonna piss a lot more people off than it's gonna help people. Sorry,
Well,
Norm, go ahead.
I had a listing downtown a number of years ago, and here's the thing. I don't think having 20, 30, 40 offers is something to brag about, to be, blunt. The record I had was 34 offers. Is that because it was marketed well, or is that because it was artificially priced low? I don't think we were that low. We knocked it out of the park, but that's because we had the AGM that just happened a couple days before. We had those minutes. We had everything ready the Monday morning. So an entire week, even the most timid buyers that need a full week had an opportunity. Um, when you think about it, 34 offers, a lot of those are young couples. They're involving their parents, mortgage broker. This is hundreds and hundreds of hours of preparation and thought and number crunching. And there's just zero regard for that. And when we're dealing with a bully offer and changing our minds, it's so much time that gets wasted. And a number of years ago, I ripped a strip off of a realtor. They said first showing Sunday at 2 till 4, offers at 5, like Sunday 5 o'clock. So they're showing it for 2 hours, and 1 hour later they're looking at offers. And I requested a showing for Saturday. I said my client works Sundays to get a mortgage to buy your home. We are going to be putting in a no subject offer. We've been writing offers. We're prepared to put in a no subject offer. We want a showing. Otherwise, we're just going to write off your property, go to the next one. And a couple hours later, he says, I've decided to do an open house Saturday and Sunday now. I think a lot of people don't remember that it takes an awful lot of time for buyers to think about things. They are working certain days. So to allow bully offers again, just really puts a lot of people at a disadvantage. And because some buyers are going to be not be considered, it's also going to put a seller at a disadvantage. Those buyers who are working on a Sunday, they're going to now be put at a disadvantage. They're going to walk away to the next property. That seller is going to actually do worse as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, the whole it's so funny because when they rolled out the new form, the irrevocable offers or irrevocable direction of offers, it was I don't think many people were complaining about it. And if you look at the scale of risks and other stuff, like the last kind of couple of years, well, first of all, we haven't been really in a market where we need to put in a what we called an IDRPO form on a listing because it wasn't hot enough. There wasn't enough buyer activity out there to do it. And a lot of people, I think, were so already
Sorry,
like,
Tyson, if I can just cut off for one
yeah,
sec. IDRPO form is the form, if anybody's watching doesn't know
it's
what it means.
irrevocable.
Yeah, yeah. Seller says I'm looking at offers next week on Tuesday. It means next week on Tuesday. They can't look at early offers. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
thanks for
Tyson.
clarifying that. So the thing about that was if even if we put that on and said, hey, we're going to have an irrevocable direction of offers, here's the time. A lot of buyers were so, I think, who walked through 2021, 2020, was such a traumatic time for them. They're going, okay, I don't even want to even compete for this property anymore. And so that's where I think there's some of that hesitation. So we just on a lot of our listings said, okay, we're not going to put this form out. And we'll just let it naturally, if it's a hot listing, we'll let it naturally take its course for multiple offers and make sure we're disclosing. But I thought, like Christian, what you're saying, it brought clarity. It made it a lot easier to explain to our sellers and be like, here, we can put this notice out. It's irrevocable, meaning that we'll only look at offers, let's say on Monday or Tuesday, but it gives you time to market the property. The bully offers, like EJ, what you said, bringing back the bully offer. That's what the headline should be like. Welcome back, bully offers. You're back in the room because
And
it's that,
Tyson, can I cut you off one more time?
yeah.
So if
It's
anybody's unclear about what a bully
yes.
offer is, it's an offer that comes in early before the
Yes.
offer deadline, and usually substantially over the asking price, 50, $100,000, and it's a kind of short, tough timeline. It says take it or leave it.
Yeah. So that was and that is back now because you still have you can still put a direction of offer saying, hey, we're not going to look at offers till Tuesday, but then now you may have EJ come with this client and swoop in there and write something over list price or whatever and say you got to accept this in the next 2 hours, otherwise like we're walking. And so then your seller's in a situation going, do we do this? Do we test in the market or not? And they have to choose to accept it or not. And then meanwhile, you probably have a couple of other parties who are waiting to, till Tuesday or when or think they have some time, and then all of a sudden they find out it's gone. And that brought a lot of frustration to a lot of buyers out there. And that's where it felt like it was unfair because a lot of people are playing by the quote unquote rules in a way. And then this, EJ the bully swoops in and doesn't play by the rules of what the sellers were wanting for, but they're forced to have to look at the offer and then they made a choice to accept it. So I just felt like Christian, like what you're saying, the clarity piece, a lot easier to explain. This is irrevocable, and we're gonna look at it. Now we have to explain all the other factors in it being like, hey, if somebody chooses to bring an offer in early, or if you're a buyer, we can choose to come in and write an aggressive offer early. So I don't know. I don't like it, but
So two quick things here. Why can't we opt out or opt in what we want to do? If the seller wants to make it irrevocable, make it irrevocable. I bet you some buyers are going to prefer those types of homes,
it's a
right?
good
Put it
point.
on the seller. We need these brainstorming sessions before we just make these changes, going back and forth, back and forth. I'm going to read a quick touch base message. Now, touch bases are realtor to realtor messaging system. This is a great way to keep all the realtors updated who have inquired on a property. This is from January 2022. It's a perfect storm. It was an older 70s townhouse in Coquitlam area, but it was, I think, a 3 or 4 bedroom townhouse. So it appealed to everyone, downsizers, upsizers, young families, everything. And it was actually a pretty good building. This just illustrates how crazy the market can be. So the message reads like this. Hi, everyone. Please show up on time for your scheduled open house booking today. With over 92 showings and COVID, dash, we are only allowing booked appointments in their 15-minute time slots. If you are late, you unfortunately miss your viewing. Viewings will be 12 minutes each. Please do not park in front of other people's parking spots. Anyways, so they ended up double booking because they would have a group upstairs and a group downstairs and then switch. So every 12 minutes they would have a showing, and they had 92 groups booked for showings, and they ended up stopping showings after that. Like it was supposed to be 2 till 4. They added another day. They added, and in the end, it was like, I don't know, 1 till 5 or whatever. Just kept going with it. Could you imagine if they got a bully offer on the Thursday night before all those booked showings? How do you get back to 92 people? And like, it's just insane. Like it's absolutely crazy
Okay, guys. Well, I think we're all kind of on the same page with this, but let me ask you this. Let's turn the table here. You represent a buyer who's ready, qualified, and says to you, EJ, Norm, Tyson, I'm ready to write a bully offer. And I've got these two wonderful townhomes. I'm ready to write an offer tonight. Let's get this before the open house. What do you do?
with more inventory and more home construction, this wouldn't be a problem.
EJ?
Yeah, well, first thing I'd say is, sorry, wife, take care of the kids. I gotta go. I gotta do this over here. But yeah, I mean, you gotta do this, and you gotta put in that offer, and kind of explain to them like how the bully offer kind of works, and how you do have to kind of pay a bit more for, well, not even more, but a good amount to make it work for the seller to actually consider not reviewing offers on a certain day. So there's a lots of yeah, moving pieces to that bully offer. You can't just be like, okay, well, here's asking, because otherwise they're just gonna wait anyway. So yeah, you kind of gotta. There are some strategies in regard to that bully offer, and you kind of hope for the best. But yeah, it's not my favorite thing to kind of do. But unfortunately, if that's what it's going to be, you're going to have to. That's what it's going to have to be, because everyone else is going to be doing that for any other place as well. So
Yeah, yeah, it definitely puts you on notice, doesn't it? You got to be able to jump, put on your clothes and jump into the car and drive out and view a property at a moment's notice. So, if you move real fast as a buyer's agent, which I know all of you guys do, it's going to give you a leg up. If you can get in there like Friday at 8 o'clock, write the offer Friday at 9:30,
Mhm.
maybe you got the property. Tyson, do you look forward to that?
Yeah, I guess like, if the client wants it and and if we're allowed to do it, then why wouldn't we do it? It's just it's kind of a thing where you kind of plug your nose and do it sometimes because you just feel like, oh shoot, but it's for my client, you're going to advocate for them as much as you can and get it in there. And so absolutely we're going to try and do that to our advantage and use it to our advantage. The only problem is there's going to be another 15,000 other realtors, well, yeah, 15,000 other realtors or so trying to do the same thing. So if their
Yeah.
clients really want it, and yeah,
By the way, guys, when we talk about offer deadlines, here's what they do in Australia from what I read a number of years ago. When a property, back to Australia, the theme
yes,
of
you love
today's
Australia.
discussion is when a property was listed, they would look at offers 1 month later, 30 days later, and buyers had the opportunity to come and look at it, doing a home inspection, check to see that they would get financing on it, and then at the end of 1 month, that's when they would look at offers. And interestingly, they would even do a auction format where, in some cases, it's right there on the street. The agent with your clients, and you say 1.1, 1.1 over there, 1.15, and so that's how they do it. So that would be kind of interesting if we could just do it right there on the street and face to face with everybody.
There'd be a lot
But
more auctioneers out there then. It's not.
Mhm.
I feel like it's
yeah,
dying hard. But here's a question about this. Were any of you guys consulted on this, or did you hear any? Like, I feel like this kind of came out of left field, and we're like, oh, they're no longer, and we're like, what? Like, everybody in our brokerage chat was kind of going, where is this coming from? And I asked for clarity from our managing broker, and she says, oh, it sounds like there's a couple of complaints that were, brought in from it, but it just felt like, why not survey the greater landscape of real estate professionals out there and go, hey, what do you think about this? How is it going? And I felt like that was not done.
I think maybe somebody's put on payroll to make these changes back and forth, and they want to keep their job.
My guess is that the complaints were coming from homeowners,
Yeah.
sellers, saying, "Hey, who government, who do you think you are telling me whether or not I can look at an offer on my place today or next Monday?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's fine if they want to kind of do that. But I think what Norm kind of mentioned, where you can actually choose if you wanted to make
Yeah.
it revocable, is a great idea because
Mhm.
then you actually just know. Because sometimes you're just like you said, you may have a property that there's like no inventory for that type of property at all in a specific area, and it is actually to their best advantage to do a direction of offers. And if you don't want to play, give anybody an extra advantage, then there should be a form that says, hey, you know what? We are not going to look at any bully offers. We are only going to look at it on a certain day. That makes way more sense to have two forms. It's not even two forms. That could be one form and you just initial one part. Do you want to make it irrevocable or do you not? It's totally up to you. So, Norm, you got my vote. Let's get it.
Yes.
Let's get it done.
Yeah. Well, and here's a funny thing too is back in the day when bully offers were happening, we actually had a lot of our clients that said, I'm going to reject this offer. Yes, it's probably a good offer, but I feel like I want to give others a fair shake of it, and if they're going to follow by the rules that I've clarified on my form that I've said we want to see offers on Tuesday, then I want them to respect that, and they can come back with their offer on Tuesday. Um, and so I've seen a lot of sellers do that as well, but.
Don't you think it always seemed to make more sense for the seller to wait until the offer deadline? The bully offer always seemed to be a lot lower than what you would get on offer day when you had 5, 10, 25 offers.
Yeah.
So it was rare for a real good bully offer to come in.
Mhm. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, I want to be respectful of your time. We're coming up to the top of the hour, and I promised we'd be off in 7 minutes. So we'll leave it there for today for the viewing public. If you've got any questions, you want to reach out to these gentlemen, you can find Tyson, EJ, and Norm's contact in the show notes just below. Feel free to hit us up with a message or a phone call. And thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave your comments and your opinions in the section below. Gentlemen, thanks very much for being here today, and we'll see you soon.